Welcome to a special edition of EVH Gear Discussion. My name is Eric Broadbent, and today's episode is being brought to you in part from our sponsors of Van Halen News Desk and VanHalenStore.com. Today we're going to be taking a slight diversion from our usually scheduled programming, and we're going to be not talking about reviews and gear, but we're going to be talking about the entertainment industry. And I've got my good friend, Mr. Glen Mazzara, who is a former executive producer of AMC's The Walking Dead, and currently the showrunner and executive producer of A&E's Damien. It's going to be a great interview. We're going to be talking about music and how we met and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. So I hope you enjoy the interview. And without further ado, let's get down to the interview with Mr. Glen Mazzara. Thank you so much for taking your time with me this evening. And I'm anxious to talk to you about some television.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. So Glen, a lot of people don't know how you and I met. We kind of met through music, and that was a couple of years, I'd say 2 or 3 years back. And yeah. I think it was your birthday, and I sent out a little guitar solo, "Happy Birthday, Glen." And tell me your thoughts on how that transpired.
It was incredibly flattering. I mean, just to know that we connected through social media, and then you wrote this solo, and I showed it to my kids. They thought that was the coolest thing. And it's funny because my kids did not really respect what I did until they saw that solo. They're like, "Oh, that's cool." So thanks for getting me some cred with my own kids. I appreciate that.
And as I told you in a note too, it's funny because it worked on the opposite parallel. My little boy is like, "Oh my goodness, Glen Mazzara likes your stuff," and so that's really cool. Meanwhile, I know what it's like though, right? When your kids are with you all the time, it's just work. It's just your work to them, but your work to everybody else is like magic.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. So
no, for sure. But you know what it's like as a parent, right? Our kids are so surrounded with us. Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of music, obviously you're talking to a music guy, so I'm going to throw a lot of music questions at you. During a work day or on a, getting ready to, whether you're writing or in a work day or just exercising, jogging, what kind of stuff do you listen to on your playlist? Like what kind of music do you listen to?
Well, I listen to a lot of different stuff. It depends. If I'm writing, I'm a huge Dylan fan, and I'm really into Dylan. I mean, I have, I just bought. He's got a massive box set of everything he recorded in '65. So I was listening to that. That was great because there's some really, you see the development of bringing it all back home and Highway 61 revisited and everything. So I mean that was fantastic. And Blonde on Blonde, he had stuff on that too. So that was really terrific. When I'm writing, I listen to a lot of Prince. I'll listen to Curtis Mayfield, listen to a lot of James Brown, Zeppelin. Those are the kind of things that I'll listen to over and over, and when we're in the writer's room, sometimes I will just put on Dylan or some of those others. Prince is great to write to, and just play that. And I won't do it when we're breaking story, but when I'm writing late at night, that's what I have going.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned some great bands. Do you find like the music scene today, like do you have do we have to go back in time to really appreciate good music, or is there anything current that you think is really cool too?
Well, it's kind of funny because I have 3 sons, and the oldest is very into, electronica, and he writes that. My middle son listens to a lot of alternative. I've been to Coachella with him and stuff. And it's interesting that he and my younger son, they're both now playing instruments. My middle son is playing bass. My younger son is playing guitar. And they kind of really go back to the classics, So my son is now playing some Bowie, but he plays Zeppelin. He plays a lot of that, those classic stuff. And my middle son has become obsessed with the Beatles. And that's all he's listening to. And those guys, I could talk about forever. And so we're spending a lot of time. It's been nice to kind of bring us together because I've bought a lot of books and documentaries, the anthology documentary series, and just kind of going through that material together. It's nice to have those common interests. So I guess I appreciate the older stuff. I'm not really listening to newer stuff. But when I do, I'll do it through my kids. Like it's what they bring me, what they're excited about, I'm excited about. I'm not one of those dads who's like, "Oh, it was better when I was a kid," or whatever. I'll listen to what they're playing and what they're excited to listen to. and it kind of brings us together. So I really love that.
I think it's better when they discover it on their own anyways. Like I could show little Eric Van Halen and things like that, and he's discovered them on his own too. I think it really shows like it's introducing the music to another generation, and they'll pass that on as well too. Very, very cool. And you definitely got some good influences for your kids there. And tell them by all means too, through you, send me some of their stuff that they're doing. And if there's anything I can help to encourage or suggest or help, I'll be more than happy to share. As always. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm anxious to see what they're doing. I'm going to jump over to some of your new stuff, Glenn, because we've started watching Damien, and I've been anxious to see this for a long time. And I'm thrilled. First of all, I'm thrilled. Watched the first episode and the second one, just the second one last night. Mm-hmm. And Sandra, my fiance, she was jumping out of her skin. She hates the milk. She calls them the white milky eyes, and she got pretty scared. But I really like the show. So I'll just a couple notes I made here. I'll just read some of my cheat sheets here. I said, because we're friends, I said when I first saw your name in the opening credits, I kind of fanboyed and like, yay, it's Glenn. You know, it's pretty cool to see your name on the screen. But I found that the episode went by so fast, and I think that's good. It didn't drag. It was fast. It was good. Pacing was good on that. And I think someone without even watching, any of the older movies, I think they can jump right into this and get hooked right away, which is very good and a testament to your writing. But I guess what my question is like, writers obviously have to wear many hats to adapt from drama to horror to whatever. My question to you is like, how do you adapt from writing from like surviving in a zombie apocalypse to basically a man discovering or rediscovering his satanic bloodlines?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really about the characters. There are versions of these shows that I think are kind of expected. And, particularly with horror, it could just be sort of a generic character going from one set piece to another set piece. And it becomes about making it more exciting and topping it. And it just, becomes kind of just throwing what you can at the audience. And I think people get tired of that. I think people watch TV because they care about characters. They love those characters, And what you see is on horror on TV, like on Walking Dead, people cry when those characters are killed off. They're really emotionally moved. They're emotionally invested. So with Damien, I really wanted to make a character that we care about, a guy who is suffering, who's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, not... I think some people are expecting this to be like the other movies where he's just, an evil senator who's going to clearly take over the world and it's just a matter of somebody stopping him or not. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to do a guy that as he goes along a path and commits more and more evil acts or starts to commit evil acts, we're complicit. We're sort of feeling his journey and saying, yeah, I would be doing that same thing, but that's kind of crazy to think about, but you could get there if you feel sympathetic. So you really have to always focus on the character. Then that's something I've been very lucky enough to do. On The Shield, we did that. So it wasn't just bad cops doing bad things. It was really, it made sense, and you cared about those characters, and there was a depth. And part of that is you bring in great writers around you to help flesh out that material and to help execute. You bring in terrific directors, and then you really need actors who are going to bring those characters to life. And here we have Bradley James and Barbara Hershey and Scott Wilson and Robin Weigand and many other actors who make those characters feel real. And I know you've only seen 2 episodes. You haven't even seen Scott Wilson's character yet, or how the other characters start to develop and change over the season. But I hope by the time everybody gets to the finale, you're fully invested in many characters and you're really feeling their pain. And so that's what it's really about for me. It's all about the characters.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think that applies to anything, whether it's music in my business or anything. You surround yourself with great people. It's always better to surround yourself with people as good or better than you. And it makes greatness come out of you too. Yeah.
And I think, and if people kind of share that same vision or try to get on the same page, I always say that, being in a writer's room is, I'm not a musician, but, I am a huge music fan. It's like a band in a studio. Yep. Let's try this, let's try that. And you're trying to bring out each other's best. You're trying to play with each other. You're pushing each other to do the best. But really what it's about is, how do we get an emotional reaction out of the audience. Not
Exactly.
just to shock them, but to really make them feel something. And one of the things I've been proud about, Damien, is that I think, people are kind of surprised by the type of feeling, but hopefully you're having an emotional reaction when you're watching the show. So, it's not just like, oh yeah, that's interesting. It's really, and so when it feels like it's going by fast, it's because your adrenaline, you're invested, your emotion, you're like, I can't believe this is happening. And it kind of gets the blood flowing. So it's all about, and that's not something I do by myself. That's something you bring in people who are going to help you get there,
That's great. Well, it's definitely working because it does go that way. You do get invested in the characters, all of the characters, even when, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but if someone leaves the show quickly, abruptly, whatever, you're like, oh my goodness, like I like that character and that character may be gone. It's sad because you do get invested in them. And I had another question, but I'm going to skip over it because you touched base on Bradley James here, who I like a lot. And it's funny. I don't know if you've heard this before, but I picture him as a younger you for some reason. I don't know what it is. You guys maybe look a little bit alike, but I could see you as his character. But the question is about Bradley. I said, I didn't know about Bradley before your show. And I like his character a lot, even though I'm scared. I know he's going to be scaring the heck out of us sometime down the road. But what stood out about him when you were casting for the role? And I remember seeing a lot of your social media tweets and things like that. You were very excited about his announcement. And what stood out about him?
He sort of had the complete package. He had a lot of heart. He had an intelligence. He's charming. He's attractive. So he's sympathetic, but he's also compassionate. So we want to feel that this guy has a lot of different stuff to him, that he's not just Machiavellian and hiding his evil in one way. That's just one layer, but we want to feel that he's suffering, that he's a good guy, that he really doesn't want to destroy the world. So there's a lot of different stuff that he has to play. He also has to, this is a complicated character because we've met this character in The Omen in the Gregory Peck film. So now Bradley not only has to say, okay, I'm that guy grown up, but I'm also the product of 25 years of my history. So we've had a lot of conversations like, where's he been? What's he been doing? How has that affected him? Why is he a war photographer? What's his life been like? Who does he know? Does he have friends? Doesn't he have friends? All of that stuff had to be filled out. And Bradley was the actor that really got the whole package right. He, when we met a lot of great actors and stuff, but he was the guy that I really felt had the right amount of heart for this role.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, obviously he's got good writers, including yourself and your team behind him, but does he come up with some ideas sometimes too and bounce ideas off you to maybe take a scene to the next level?
No, he'll ask questions, okay. He'll certainly say, I try to have a collaborative process. I think particularly with the first year show, it's the actors sign on and they want to know what their characters are. And I try to make it very collaborative. So I say, as you are reading the script, give me your feedback. What are you responding to? What feels honest? What feels dishonest? What feels like a cheat? And we'll have a lot of those conversations. And I don't necessarily tell them where it's going. I didn't tell Bradley what was happening in the finale until we were around episode 8 or 9 or something like that. We did 10 episodes. And so he knew what was coming in the next script. But, he doesn't really necessarily pitch ideas. It's more about asking questions and saying what material feels right to him. The other thing is that a lot of times in the rewrite process, I might be going for something and then you put the script out and the studio gives notes and the network gives notes and you have all of these other folks, other producers, they start giving notes. And so you start addressing those notes to maybe clarify something, change something, what have you. And that can muddy the waters a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
Kind of add a layer that you don't need or something like that. And Bradley and Barbara and the other actors have been fantastic about saying, well, why is this changing? Is this really what you want? So, and you're trying to make a show and deliver the show on time and make sure everybody is contributing. And so they've been really good about, keeping me focused on my vision of the show and say, yeah, you're right, we tried it, it didn't really work, let's go back to what we had, or something like that. So Bradley's been really instrumental about helping me tell the story I want to tell.
Okay, that's great. I really do like him as a character. I'm glad I discovered this show, obviously, and it's obviously just because of you. I mean, I would have heard of it anyways, but obviously I'm more invested because of you too. And I do like him as an actor. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Now this is going to be a stereotypical question. I'm sure you've got this in a dozen interviews, but I want to ask you anyways. Like I told you in an email, I said, I know this is as common as they come, but solely because I'm a fan of a couple of your guys' work. What's it like working with Scott Wilson again? As Herschel, as we used to know him.
Well, Scott's great. I mean, I love working with Scott. We got to be friendly on Walking Dead, and I really cared about him, and we became friendly. Okay. Scott was, he does a lot of the, fan conventions, comic book conventions, that kind of stuff. And at first he was hesitant to do that. And I suggested, I said, well, just try it. See, I think you'll like it, And so he's been doing that. So he sort of, will call me once in a while and say, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? He'll ask me questions, or, if he's got certain decisions to make or whatever. And we've become friendly, on more than just actors work, actor and writer working together. I consider him a friend. So I really wanted him in the show, and we, I wrote the character of John Lyons for him, and we didn't offer it to anybody else. I just called and said, hey, you want to come do this? And then we started developing that character. So I love speaking with him. He's great. He's wonderful. I've been to his house. I know his wife, and I remember one of the best things was on Walking Dead. He was living in this hotel, and when he was shooting, they put him up in a hotel, and the people at the hotel loved him so much they turned over this one room. They made it into like a TV room for him, and we would go back there and watch Breaking Bad together.
Oh, awesome!
It was like hanging out with Scott Wilson, watching. God, it was so much fun. Yeah, he's great. He's great.
I could picture Scott, and I know we're mutual friends with some of these guys that put on the conventions, like the Walker Stalkers and those guys and things like that too, James and Eric and people like that. But I could see Scott probably. I'm just trying to get in his mindset. I could probably see him saying to you, they don't want me at these conventions. And meanwhile, he's a huge part of those conventions. Like everybody loves him.
He didn't think anybody would know who he was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That he's like the moral compass.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about people you've worked with before, obviously I'm a musician, so this question has to come from me. What's it like working with Bear again with the scoring and the music in the show?
Well, Bear's fantastic. He was one of the first calls I made when I decided to do this project, because he's very busy and stuff. And Bear and I have a great relationship, because when I became showrunner on Walking Dead, he was getting a lot of notes, a lot of, we weren't sure how to work in the score on that show. So I had to spend a lot of time just kind of learning how he works. And instead of, I think some people were trying to give notes about, well, maybe we use this type of instrument, or maybe we, they were trying to tell him how to write the music. Mm-hmm. And I just spoke emotionally about what the scene should feel like, or what was the emotion I was trying to go for. And then he goes, okay, I got this. And we developed a shorthand. So when he's in a room and we're doing a music spotting, first of all, I don't feel a show is good until Bear likes it.
Oh, good.
So if he watches it, he comes in and he watches, and we have all these people around us, and he watches and he goes, I get it. This is what it is, or I love this, or, damn, I didn't see that coming, or whatever it is. If I get a reaction out of Bear, then I feel like, okay, I'm getting what I want. This has succeeded. And so then he goes off and he writes the music, and once in a while I'll call and say, well, I was trying to go for this. But we have such a shorthand that it's been really, I don't think there's another artist I've worked with that I'm in such sync with. Kind of, he gets me, I get him, we talk very quickly, and I think the music comes together. And I feel his music is adding so much to the show, because it's really not just about the tone, but it's also, it's a presence. in horror movie, and music can be a presence in horror, but particularly this stuff with the satanic presence, all coming from Jerry Goldsmith's score. Bear's very familiar with that score, and he's had very clever ways on how to develop that score, how to push it, how to riff off it. So he's having a blast, and I just absolutely love working with him. He's great.
Well, that's very cool. I can relate to back in my days with the bands where I'd be with a band for, a decade plus, same band, and you might change a couple members, but the nucleus of the band is the same. And you can close your eyes and you can both, you don't have to look at one another, and the chemistry between you makes the symmetry, the synergy between it. And I could see that with you guys, how you just come up with an idea and then he feels it right away. So as opposed to work with someone new and just that, it's almost like dating all over again and that kind of thing, right? You're just learning how each other works and that kind of stuff.
And I've been lucky because, I did have new writers on this show, writers I had worked with before. There was one writer I had worked with previously, but my editors, I had two editors that I had worked with before, and they just got me, so it's like that. I'm just like, oh yeah, let's do this, and they're like, got it, and it is that sort of that shorthand, and I have that with Bear. So that was given the presence of music or the importance of music on this show, that was key for me to have, because we both knew right away we were going for the exact same thing.
Very cool. Well, yeah, you great team in place for sure. I know I was kind of starstruck with the day I sent you the birthday video there, and he commented back, because he's a good friend of yours, obviously too, and he goes, "Dude, you shred hard." And I didn't even want to stay for about a half an hour. I was like, "Okay, Bear McCrae just said I shred hard. Okay, well, I'll smoke and mirrors, Bear." It's awesome. All right, so am I correct in saying that there are 12 episodes of the show this season?
No, only 10. We were originally picked up straight to series for 6, and then they picked up 4 more episodes, so there's 10 altogether.
Okay. Is it too early to comment on what's past season 1, or is that something we just have to wait and see?
What do you mean?
Will there be more than will it be renewed for another season, or?
I hope so. That hasn't been decided. I think they're trying to build an audience, and people are just finding it. And I think this is the kind of show that, as you see more episodes and it becomes clear what the journey is, hopefully it'll build word of mouth and more people will come to it. But then I have a feeling that the way everything comes together at the finale, and then people will go back and maybe a new audience will binge watch and say, "Oh yeah, that was so people watch TV in very different ways." So I think it might be a little while before people feel that they have a complete picture of what the audience is.
Okay, very fair for sure.
That to make a decision about a season 2. I hope that, because we have a long story to tell. So I love the characters, I love the show. So I hope we get the opportunity.
It's funny when you mentioned binge watching too. We do that here sometimes too. We'll discover new shows, and it's fun. Sometimes you get to burn through a season in no time at all. But then at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, because then you're like, okay, now what do I do for a month? And with your show right now, I'm watching it like everyone else does every week, and it's like you just cannot wait until the next episode. That's a really cool thing too.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks for saying that. That's cool.
No problem. I guess, let me see. Oh yeah, 2 last questions for you, Glenn. I'll let you go. I know the answer to some of these questions here because you share with us, but for people that don't know, can you share some of the locations that you were shooting Damien at?
Well, we shot in Toronto, which was pretty exciting. I mean, really cold, but we shot. It was amazing because Shekhar Kapoor was our director for the first episode. So we shot the Syria sequence from the first episode. It was shot at the Hearn generator. Do you know that? Hearn?
No, I'll look it up.
There's an abandoned power plant, the Hearn generator plant. It's out on the water somewhere, and it's just amazing. It's just like two football fields long, and it's got these huge concrete pillars that used to hold up these generators, and it is so cold inside. It's covered. So it's actually colder inside than it is outside because the sunlight doesn't get in there to warm it up. So there's ice inside and stuff. That was brutally cold to shoot that. That was a tough
and that became Syria. That was Syria.
Yeah, and we shot that for Syria. So that was great. And then we just kind of bopped around. We shot a little bit in downtown, and we just kind of bopped around all around Toronto. And it was really just a wonderful place to shoot. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. You know, I was staying in a hotel in Yorkville and everything. And I think it's really cool. I was not familiar with Toronto before that, and I thought it was a really cool city and a fantastic crew, super talented. So I was happy we shot there. I think we got a lot of bang for the buck.
Very cool. I remember teasing you a little bit too. You're tweeting saying, "Yeah, I can't get over how cold it is." I'm like, Glenn, it's like 50 degrees. You know, this is beautiful in Canada, but for you back home, you know.
Yeah, listen, I'm in Los Angeles, so I think once I moved out of New York, I think my blood got thin. So yeah. I was not prepared.
I remember seeing some viral videos for some weather anchors down in your neck of the woods, and it was like when you got a cold snap one time a couple of years back, and it was like when I say cold snap, like people were going out with a windbreaker, and it was like, look at this peach has fallen from the tree, and like that's how cold it was. It was like literally the person having to go with a windbreaker, you know.
Yeah, LA is not good with weather or cold or rain. Yeah, they can't take anything. So
yeah, that's classic. Last question for you, Glenn, is I know you can't give much away, and obviously you want to keep people tuning in every week, and I'll be one of them. But can you give us a bit of a pinch of what we can expect as Damien kind of his recollections coming along pretty good of himself? Can you give us a little hint of what's coming down the road?
Well, I think what you're going to see is, you know, Damien starts to figure out, you know, he wants to put more pieces in place. He wants to research more about, you know, who are the different groups coming after him? What is Barbara Hershey's role, Anne Rutledge? You know, he'll go to Scott Wilson's character for some help. You know, we see that there's this nun that we met in episode 2. She's away from the Catholic Church. We have this detective now. So everyone's trying to come after Damien from different viewpoints, you know, different perspectives. And there's a lot of different people coming at him. How does he push back against each one? How does he fight back? How does he try to blast through this and say, well, I'm not going to work with you or whatever. How do I take control of this? And that's really what the story is. So what we're trying to do is put as much pressure on this character as possible and have him sort of push and fight his way through it. So that's the story you're going to see.
Fantastic. Well, I love the show, Glenn. I props to you huge and your team. I know you work with good people. And one thing I've really respect about you, Glenn, I see it all the time in social media, is how you tend to always deflect the props and you give to everybody else. And I mean, that's a very commendable thing. I know you're the nucleus of it, but you have good people around you, and I'm sure they're very proud to be working with you as well.
I'm lucky to have them. So thanks for saying that. That's very kind. Thank you.
No problem. Well, folks, I'm going to let Glenn hit the road. I know he's a busy man. So Glenn, I want to thank you very much for your time today. And thank you for joining us. And a lot of my guitar player followers that are on here, they're huge fans of the style of work that you do, the shows you've done in the past, and the shows that you're doing now, and will be fans of your future work. So I know they're going to dig this interview as well.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was really fun. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Glenn. Everybody, it's Glen Mazzara, and have a great night, Glenn.
Okay. Thanks, brother. Later.